So plot to drop the IQ, fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood wands of holly, suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempt a mental robbery, executed sloppily. The poppers see this mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Welcome back to Rogue Ways, where tonight we're talking about the ancient and modern memes, or memetics, the study of those memes. It is actually one of the most ancient magics, and in the present day, it's being used for warfare and control mostly, and by random people who have no idea that they're using memetic warfare. And that is actually maybe one of our greatest hopes, but we'll get to that. And before we do, I'll share with you that for a while now, I've been doing shows Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, usually about 3 shows a week, not including Day Zero, which is often live streamed on my channel, but is its own show that I just happen to be a co-host with the guys. And so Monday, Wednesday, Thursday tends to be my schedule. So here I am on Monday night doing this show. It's always usually a show like this where it's just sort of whatever topic I've been guided to share about, teach about, learn about. And Tuesdays, I do Lightning Oracle. If you don't know, that has long since become an event instead of a show. So if you want to be joining us for Lightning Oracle round, you would go to my Calendly, calendly.com/rogueways, and you would sign up for that. It's the most affordable and accessible thing that I offer people. So if you want a message from your spiritual guides and allies, or an answer to a question, whether you want to share it or not, we are in a group together and we all get these messages. It's got a great synergy. It's got a fantastic healing field. So while I'm not actively doing any healing work, just because we're in the field of source and channeling through some powerful messages from your guides and allies, it is actually very healing for people. So it is actually a powerful event either way, but it's super cheap and affordable. So that's Tuesdays, every other Tuesday at least. And then Wednesdays, I usually do Winning Report. A couple weeks ago, super sick. I don't think I did it until Sunday. Then this last week, I didn't do it till Thursday because I, again, had some things come up with my health. And this week, I'm doing it on Thursday as well. And I just want to let you know, I might end up doing that generally. I might end up doing this show Monday and then Winning Report Thursday. And if I do an extra show in the week, it'll just be a bonus for all of us, right? So that's my tentative plan for the moment. And I just like to let you guys know what's going on and what might change. So there you have it. Tomorrow's Tuesday, immediately the 22nd, I actually am doing an in-person sound bath and healing here in Colorado Springs. So if you're local, you can find that at Quantum Peak Residency. And Quantum Peak is actually something I want to talk to you guys about also. So I know not many of you are local, but if you are, that's happening. It's at the Garden of the Gods Resort. It is at 5:30 local time. And so I hope to maybe see some of you there. I know some of the people around the area who I know are going to be there, and it should be a pretty cool event. It's $25, super affordable. It's actually pretty amazing price to receive something like this. And I'm excited to be a part of it in conjunction with Best Lifing and Quantum Peak organizations who I'm also going to be working with a little bit more. So we'll actually just get into things so I can tell you about that. But before we do, I'll remind you, rogueways.org is where everything I do is. All the classes I teach, all the one-on-one sessions I do, my books, my Oregon there in the shop, all of the favorite things, as I call them, which I love to share with you because I actually use them myself. Those are also here on the favorite things tab. Some of these are affiliate links. Some of them, the coupon code RogueWays gets you a discount. It gets me an affiliate boost too. All of them are things I actually use myself. If not daily, then, every few months or so, just depending on what it is. 100% of the things on here, I don't suggest anything to people that I don't actively use myself. So that's all there on the favorite things tab. But again, my books are here. You can also get them at Barnes & Noble, Audible, anywhere books are sold. You can also read the testimony of the people who have worked with me in various ways over the years. Lots of high praise, lots of really good stuff. Just gives you an idea of how other people feel having worked with me on the spiritual level. So that's all there at rogueways.org. My channeled messages that come through the spiritual ancestors and my writing as it occurs in real time is here on Substack. rogueways.substack.com is the place to be. if you want to access those messages. If you want to support the show, also, it's a good place to sign up at the paid level. Otherwise, if you're signed up at the free level, you get plenty of free content, especially these days. It seems like there's a lot. That's because I'm sharing a lot of what I've been reading and doing. And so all sorts of stuff. When you do sign up at the paid level, not only do you support the show, not only do you get those spiritual channeled messages from the spiritual ancestors, but you also get access to the archives. So you get all of the channel messages over the years, and there are years of them. And so sooner or later, I'll gather those into the next source channeled book. In the meantime, you can get those source channeled books back on my site. Like I said, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all the places books are. But, if you want to be getting them while they're coming out and fresh, while they're the most applicable, especially to current events, which they're commonly talking about, the spiritual ancestors, when I'm channeling them, they're often giving me things that are surprising me, and then they happen. So pretty cool to be in touch with that, and pretty affordable. And again, I really appreciate your support if you're a paid supporter on Substack, rogueways.substack.com. But this Quantum Peak event is super exciting. I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited to be co-creating with this event and to be working with this organization. Ideally, this will be an event that you want to come to. I would come to it if I weren't going to be at it. So, presenting or doing healing sessions, or who knows what other capacity. This is a dynamic situation. So, we'll see as we go, but I will definitely be there if you're going to be there. And I have a link to share with you if you are going to sign up. But also I have an on my Calendly, and let's just go check that out really quick. Whoop. On my Calendly, I have the opportunity for you to schedule a free 10-minute consultation if you're not sure what you want. Oh, it's not showing. I forgot. Okay, well, I'm going to send this out to you guys. I'll put it in the show notes, even though it's not there now. You will see it there if you're watching this not live, so that you can talk to me if you want to about the event, about coming to the event, and I can make sure you use that link. So you can get a discount, and I can get also some acknowledgement for having brought you there. Again, it would be an event that I would go to if I weren't going to be there already. So I'm excited about it. It's pretty cool. Garden of the Gods Resort is a beautiful place. I'll tell you more about Quantum Peak, and also the option to have a free consultation with me about that event if you're thinking about coming. In the next episode, I do, and also in the show notes here after we're done going live here. If you're on my email list, you'll already know about this. If you're on my Substack, you'll already know about this. And that's always true. So if you want to have like the cutting edge, like before other people, you want to be the first to know about things, first to get offers, etc., that's where you should be. If you're on rogueways.org, signing up for the email list is at the bottom of every single page. If you are on Substack, you just sign up there, right? rogueways.substack.com. So those are the ways to keep in touch and know about things like this before they happen. Since we're here, I'll tell you the 8/8 Lionsgate is coming up, and it's also a full moon. It's actually the next day, I think, or maybe even the day after, but it's right in that same portal time, which is pretty cool. So I've been called to guide an 8/8 Lionsgate full moon abundance and purpose blessing. And this will be specifically to do a little bit of teaching, do a little bit of here's some tools to continue working on your abundance and purpose beyond this hour or so that we're going to spend together. But then we're also going to do a powerful blessing. If you've been in connection with my previous 11/11 Venus activations, or my celestial alignment activations, or the violet vigil flame activations, this will be very similar. So you know the feel of it. It's a powerful channel that opens up and comes through to people. It's a powerful blessing, which has the ability to remove blockage and assist with the release of your old karmic and patterns and trauma, but also to bring in that good, true, and beautiful messaging. And so especially around abundance and our purpose in life, this is a really powerful thing. It's aligned with the 8/8 Lionsgate and the full moon. So they're perfectly aligned. It will be a perfect thing to do at that time. And so that's here on Calendly as well. Lightning Oracle is here. Lionsgate Abundance Blessing is here. Everything that I offer to people, group and independent one-on-one, is also here at Calendly. Calendly.com/rogueways. So that's all the stuff I wanted to update you guys about and then we'll jump into it. So we're talking today about memes and memetics. And memetics is a field of study, and memetics is considered a mathematic field of study. It could easily be considered a sociological area of study. It is an academic area of study, memetics. And the term meme was actually coined by Richard Dawkins, who is a scientist. Some say CIA, who knows? But Richard Dawkins is a scientist who coined the term meme in his 1976 book, which many people have heard of, many people have read, The Selfish Gene. The Selfish Gene. There's a lot that a lot of people could criticize about the book in general, about this concept of the selfish gene and the types of things he talks about. There's a lot that people criticize about, again, whether or not this is propaganda in a way or, intentional sort of societal framing and crafting. And maybe it is. It could also be accidental, as I always say, like there could be a conspiracy there. It could also be that this is just genuinely what he believed and said. And it just also seems to dovetail with some agendas that we see in the world. So, you go where you want with that. It's cool. But either way, he coined this term meme. You'll notice in 1976, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have what most people most of the time are referring to as memes. We didn't have pictures with words on them. It's usually what a meme is, right? If we're talking memes and you go up to anybody right now and you just take a poll, what's a meme? Like that's what they're going to describe. It's this picture with words on it. It's usually in some way pop culture related or current events related. It's in some way definitely societal, cultural, and then that's what they'll describe to you. But that's not actually what a meme is. That is just a version of this broader category of what memes are. This is just a type of meme, actually. 1976, that didn't exist, and that's when he coined the term in the book, The Selfish Gene. So Richard Dawkins defines it as a unit of cultural transmission. He says, or imitation. And he compares this to genetics, right? Genes are also units of that get transferred from one person to another, right? Units of data and information bundled together and transferred on through reproduction. So he compares it to that, but this is informational, right? So a unit of cultural transmission or imitation, some sort of information is being transmitted. The same thing is happening in the genes. It's just happening a little bit more physically than in memetic transfer. He considered memes to be the cultural parallel to biological genes. Just as genes replicate and spread through a gene pool, memes replicate and spread through a meme pool of cultural information, like ideas in people's minds. And here this AI overview gives us a couple pretty good examples actually of memes that aren't pictures with words on them, right? And so one is tunes, it says, which I think means music, right? And it's true, especially like those catchy tunes that you hear on commercials and then like 20 years later, they haven't even played that commercial, but you still sing it in your head. That's because it's meme, it's memetic. It's traveled so far and so deeply, you can carry it long after it's dead. Very easily too, right? Very easily you can carry it. And interestingly, you'll notice that many other people will recognize it. If you were to whistle one of these tunes that you heard when you were a child or recently in some sort of commercial application, other people would know what you're talking about, right? So it's culturally significant. It's culturally effective. Ideas are also memes. So the idea that might pop up that then catches and runs and you're kind of like, wow, everyone's suddenly talking about this. Well, that's a meme. That's memetic travel, right? It's transferring memetically from person to person. Catchphrases can be like this too. They don't talk about here, but it's true that like idioms and these sorts of cultural things are also memes, right? And sometimes you kind of have to like try to figure out where they even came from, why we even say it. Sometimes they're so archaic that the thing that it was originally referencing is no longer even present in our culture, but we still say it. Like kick the bucket or toe the line. Like very few people are kicking buckets or towing lines, but we still say that. I'm talking about toe the line in the carrying the fishing or the boat line to go carry it and tie it up, which is one of the things that toe the line is said to mean. And I know there's a whole debate about that and we don't need to get into it, but idioms like this, catchphrases like this, or phrases like this are also memes. They last forever. They last so long that sometimes we forget why we even say the thing. Clothing fashions are mimetic. So you see somebody wearing a certain thing and then it catches on, and then eventually everybody's wearing this thing. And you'll usually notice there's lots of people who claim to have invented it, because that's also usually true. It's like the 100th monkey thing. There's often multiple people inventing the same thing, whether it's in chemistry or physics or, engineering or whatever. There's like 12 people who did it at the exact same time. It's like once one person does it, a bunch of people get it. Because what we don't necessarily always talk about is how memetics and memes actually transfer faster than light, faster than speech, faster than creating a picture with words on it and posting it on Twitter, which is, something that indicates our spiritual nature and the noetic sort of aspect of ourselves, or the collective unconscious. So it's one of the many things that can inform us that that is how the world actually works. It's in science. It's all over the place. It's well documented. It's not a woo-woo thing. It is actually true that tons of people will just be trying to, for example, create this specific chemical formulation and failing and failing and failing. And then one lab somewhere does it. And that same day, like 6 other labs in the world will do it. They all did it independently. So beyond memetics, perhaps, but memetic-like, meme-like, actually. Very interesting. So clothing fashions can be like this. And yeah, what I just was talking about, it says ways of making things like pottery or arches will also be mimetic. So you'll be doing it one way and someone will come up with a different way that will catch on. It will travel super fast. And all of a sudden, everybody's making it in this new way. So very cool. Memetics, the study of memes, actually arose in the 90s. So Richard Dawkins coined this term in 76. The study of it academically arose in the 90s. I'll say the study of it academically already existed. We just didn't call it such. And so this is a lot of what we're going to be noticing today is the word meme and the study of memetics seem new to us. Memes seem new to us, but they're actually ancient. They've always existed. We just change our word for them. We have many different words for it over the past, and most of them are spiritual and magical. Spiritual and magical, and then we made it academic. You see this trend in all of the modern world. Things that were spiritual and magical have become materialist and scientific. But some of them are too woo-woo and they won't get mainstream science. But a lot of things like meme is one example that has. So that's what a meme is. And one example of a meme that is spiritual are mantras. And so it's sort of like the idiom, sort of like the catchphrase thing. A mantra is something that has lasted thousands of years. We don't actually even know the origin of many of our mantras. And I'm not necessarily talking about the type of mantra where like affirmation, where you're saying like, oh, I'm a good person and I believe in myself. And you're saying these good things to yourself. That's also often referred to as a mantra and really cool. I'm talking about mantras that are like sacred seed syllables, sacred sounds. The most recognizable being Om. Everybody recognizes Om. Everybody knows Om. Some people don't even know why they know Om. They're just like, it's around so much and you just will pick it up somewhere. And you've never studied spirituality, you might know Om. So Om is one, and there's many others. There's hundreds of others. And these have existed through time, through cultures. It's a cultural unit of transmission. And it travels like wildfire, and it never dies. It never dies. It's a very strong egregore for that reason, a very strong tulpa, you might say. So a sacred utterance, a sound, a word, a phrase, often repeated in spiritual practices like meditation or prayer to focus the mind and align one's energy is usually the purpose of it. As we talked about recently in a recent episode called Sanskrit Cymatics, you may have also heard me talking about, or maybe you've heard others talk about the Sanskrit alphabet are actually almost all sacred seed syllables, whether we call them that or not. And when you speak them, the cymatic impression that they create in material reality is exactly the same as the drawn letter of that sound or of that idea, which blows my mind, actually. There is no other alphabet that's even remotely like that on Earth. Super, super high vibration. And so Sanskrit is a special, special language, the sounds of which are also special. And the cymatic creation of that language is very powerful. If there were going to be a language I would peg as the language of creation and magic, it would be Sanskrit for this reason. because all other language and sound, you can speak it all you want, and the cymatics will just kind of be a jumbled chaos. But you speak Sanskrit correctly, and you create the letters as you go. Very fascinating. But beside the point tonight. So all these mantras, these are used to hone energy and direct it. And as you can see with Om, which is Sanskrit, you're actually creating something. If you can say Om and it creates a cymatic impression or structure through the sound wave that can be perceived in material reality, that's a very different thing from just saying a random sound, right? We're not just repeating sounds here. These mantras are actually doing something. There's a technology behind them, and it's memetic. It's traveled through time. It's transmitted cultural and information, even beyond our conscious mind. You go say Om to a baby and watch what happens. Right? People have done this, and they're like, I don't think it works. And the baby's like fussy or whatever, and they Om them, and the baby just like chills out. It just is like the word of peace and surrender, perhaps. It's very, very beautiful. So lots of seed syllables, lots of them Sanskrit, and lots of them have this effect, are very beautiful. And so this is an example of a meme. Again, you ask most people what's a meme, they're never going to say, oh, Sanskrit sounds are memes. But they are. They are memes. They do travel, and they are effective. And I'll say, the older and more practiced anything is, the higher its ability to transmit to you or through you something profound. And that's just because of its resonant field or its morphic resonance, as Rupert Sheldrake talks about. It's because of its egregore or its tulpa, which are all just ways of saying it's because we've repeated it so much that it's become deeply etched into the universal fabric. We have created this as a powerful thing. So you don't have to be a Buddhist or a, speaker of Sanskrit or any of these things, a Vedic practitioner, in order to use these. You can be anyone, and you can Om. You can just chant, or you can intone the seed syllables, and they'll be powerful. They carry with them, in fact, so much more than we can perceive at the conscious level. And they're very effective. So very effective memes, those mantras. In most mystery schools and mystic traditions, we also have just an incredible collection of memes, actually. It's like the vast majority of what is transmitted is memetic. The vast majority of what's passed down from master to pupil through initiatic orders and all of this stuff, it is memetic. And often that comes through symbols. So this says mystery school symbols are visual representations of esoteric knowledge and spiritual concepts taught within ancient and modern mystery schools. I'll take it a step further, and I'll say the symbols actually exist in the universe, and people just receive them and transmit them to each other. There's something more universal about it even than this description is giving it. Sort of like the seed syllables. There's something almost unspeakable that can be transmitted in a symbol. It can't be transmitted any other way, and it often bypasses your logic brain and your, thought box and all of this stuff going on. It goes straight into your subconscious. You might think that's a bad thing, but you're actually built that way. That's the technology of your body, and it's actually a beautiful thing. And we're very lucky that we have this ability to receive symbolically information that we can't even necessarily speak clearly or think clearly about what it actually is. And you can have revelation, you can have enlightenment around symbols and these things, but you're also often just receiving more than you know that you are when you are engaging with a symbol. It's also why you might want to stay away from darker symbols, or especially sigils or summoning work type images. I don't mess with those, and I don't suggest people do. So it says these symbols are often found in various cultures and traditions, and they're not mere decorations, but they're used to convey complex ideas about the universe, human existence, and spiritual paths. They can be geometric shapes, objects, or even figures that act as keys to unlock deeper understanding and facilitate spiritual growth for initiates. And I mean, we could go and do 20 shows on just symbols and how to understand them and how to read them and become well-versed in them. And that's great. It's the same process as becoming good at tarot or anything else. It's a symbolic journey. Becoming good at interpreting your own dreams is the same type of journey. It becomes deeper and deeper as you engage with it. And so we could do that, but we're not We're not going to, but we'll just talk a little bit about symbols. They're super important, actually. There's nothing in the world that isn't sort of governed by the memetic transmission of symbols. So they're perhaps one of the most powerful tools that we have as people in a material world. So here it's describing how they convey esoteric knowledge, which a lot of people misconstrue what that even means. All that means is they convey knowledge that isn't surface level or easily obtainable or easily discovered. That's all it means. It's just things that are slightly more hidden, not hidden from you by something, but just not apparent and obvious, except to the people who are choosing to pay attention and go deeper. It's not that it's obscured intentionally. It's just not right there, flashing in your face, like, right? That's all esoteric really is. A lot of people like attribute something dark or nefarious to the word esoteric, and there's no purpose to that. It just doesn't make sense, and it's not true. So it says mystery school symbols are visual representations of the core teachings and philosophies of mystery traditions. Yeah. So one example is the rose cross, which I've talked about before as a Rosicrucian. And so, you know, you can definitely go look into this yourself. It's not hidden knowledge. It's not obscured from you. If you are interested in it, it's just right there for you. But the idea of the cross as a symbol, one layer of it at least, and perhaps the most profound in my opinion, is that it just represents you. It's just, you are a person head to toe here. That's sort of the, you know, vertical aspect of the cross. And then the horizontal aspect is the way that you spread out into this world and act and behave and present yourself here in this space, in this physical reality. So here's your connection from heaven to earth. That's your central energy channel. And then here's your unfolding into the world. This is what the cross represents at its core, is just a person, just you. And the rose on that cross represents what a rose almost always represents, which is your blossoming. So in this case, it's specifically your emotional or spiritual, especially spiritual blossoming. It's your advancement as a soul, as a spiritual being. And so most people, you might say, is like a little bit more of a bud than a bloom. That's cool. It's just where people are at. And then if they choose to, they notice the sun of enlightenment and they start to open to it and they bloom. So that's what the rose cross is. That's what Rosicrucian means. It's the rosy cross, and that's what the rosy cross means. So if there's a symbol that packs all this information into it and then offers it to you, and it's easily packaged, it's easy to know what it means, it's easy to understand it even if you weren't sort of initiated into it or taught what it means, you could discern that on your own because it's universal in nature. It reflects the universe. It reflects your path. It reflects you. And so it's there. It's accessible to all, and it transfers through time very easily because of that. So all symbols are like that. That's just one example of all symbols. And so they're not just random. They're not just, you know, disconnected. They're intimately reflecting the natural world. And that's all they do. That's transmitted easily. It's more easy than I just told you that in a bunch of words. I could write that out in like a book, all these things, but it's much easier to just draw a cross with a rose and pass it on. So they can technically get lost, but they're not usually. They're found again if they are, because they are so embedded in the universe. So it says symbolic language transcends literal meaning, requiring interpretation and understanding of hidden meanings. And that's true of everything. That's actually what your process is in listening to me or looking at these things or studying whatever you study or doing whatever practices you do, is to understand yourself and the world more deeply. That's what you're doing. That's what we're all doing. And symbols help you do it. They are keys to deeper meaning. It says they facilitate spiritual growth. It's true. Sometimes just like Om actually carries much more than you could consciously understand or know. So do these symbols. And so even sometimes encountering them will unleash something in you. It will awaken something in you. It will cause a remembering within you. And this is, again, because your subconscious mind is actually kind of keyed into symbols. They're kind of the magic that makes you function. And so they kind of call you back to something that you sometimes can't put into words, but you feel or you experience. And that usually helps you to bloom like the rose you are even more. So it gives some examples. It has sacred geometry. Sacred geometry is an example, of course, a really good one. And again, when we look at sacred geometry, what we usually find are natural relationships, again, and sometimes really complex ones. Sometimes natural relationships, such as, even the golden ratio that we then see expressed in every living thing we could find anywhere. Like all of nature is connected to this, right? So you have a sacred symbol like this spiral of the golden ratio, but it actually holds within it a key to all of material reality, all of the universe. And they're all like this, right? Sacred geometry is often like that. That's why it's sacred, right? That's why the ancient people and Pythagoras, the master, loved it and studied it and venerated it, taught it, passed it on memetically. The caduceus, we've talked about a million times on the show. It's those two snakes that come together, and there's often a cross or there's some sort of pole. And this represents you moving up through your chakra systems and having an awakening at the top. The snakes are your two energy channels, right? And this is the caduceus. So you're transmitting, again, all of this knowledge, all of this wisdom in a very simple symbol that is memetic in nature and can be passed on easily and transmit this culture easily. The all-seeing eye is one. It's on the dollar. It's everywhere. The Ouroboros, this is the snake eating its own tail, representing infinity. And again, if you never knew that and you saw it, you could understand it. It might be able to take you a while. Oh my gosh, they even have the rose cross here. There you go. The tree of life, the Sphinx. All of these are examples of symbols, but all symbols are memes. All of them are. So this is, again, what I was saying. Richard Dawkins coined the term meme in 1976. But before that, we still had plenty of words that described the process of representing pretty complex amounts of information, distilling it into a unit, and then being able to transmit it easily. Of course we did. We had it all throughout all of history. We've had this. So memes are old magic. Archetypes are another example. Archetypes, of course, are the universal recurring patterns of symbols, characters, or situations that appear across different cultures and time periods, often representing fundamental human experiences. So these are sort of the hero's journey aspect of being a human. These are the developmental stages we all go through again and again and again. We spiral through them again and again and again. These are universal because all people actually are the same. We all have the same experiences. If you look through the tarot deck and the major arcana, you see all these archetypal aspects of our major life points and transitions and transformations. And the reason that it works is because we can all relate to them because we've all experienced them. We've all experienced them in this life. We've all experienced them in other lives. They're very, very deeply woven. This is also why you can look at any culture's mythology and you can pick out the same archetypes, sometimes to a stunning degree of similarity, making you wonder how long has the memetic transfer really been going on? And other times it's just because you can acknowledge that all people go through the same sorts of things. These are universal patterns. So again, if you somehow had to start from scratch and you were like plopped down in the world and nobody had any language or anything and nobody remembered anything, you would recreate all of this. Because all of it exists in nature and in you, which I repeat myself, but you are nature. And so it's just there. And you're just going to know it. You're just going to see it. And it's just going to come back to the same thing. And that's why I said so many times when people are like, oh, that's not how you do tarot. That's not how you do energy work. Or that's not how you do this. People are very egotistical about these things often. But I just always point out, well, like, who was the first person to do this? And like people they're stumped. I'm like, oh, it's not a test. I'm just trying to point out, like, at some point, someone just did it. Nobody taught them. They just did it. And so if you think there's just one way, or that someone can't spontaneously become a channel for source, then you're a little bit crazy. You're a little bit egotistical, a little bit stuck, right? It's bigger than that. It's bigger than you. And archetypes are another thing that is bigger than us. It's universal. Someone will come back to it, even if it disappeared. So they're not specific to one culture or individual. They're specific to everyone. common to everyone. The hero is a very simple example. We all have heroes. We all have villains. We all have the mentor archetype, the innocent, the orphan, the caregiver, the shadow. We have all kinds of these archetypes that we can recognize. We've been all of them. We will be them all again, whether we know it or not, whether we acknowledge it or not. And everyone has been. So that is another type of meme. It's a meme. It just traveled. It's easy to represent. It's easy to transfer between people. It's easier for people to recognize. You can pack a whole lot into archetype without writing a novel or having an epic song, right? So that's another aspect of memes. They're easy. They're easy. We even had memes, again, before we had the internet, before Richard Dawkins coined the term meme, we had old school memes. This is like a 1920s meme. And I'm talking about the type where people will call, if you went out on the street, you asked what a meme is, they'd be like pictures with words on it. Well, here you go. Here's a picture with a word on it. Here's a meme that maybe isn't that successful because I don't know what it means. So it hasn't transmitted culturally effectively enough for me to be able to look at it and understand what's happening. It does say the sad lot of Kendrick. I don't know why. It looks like a spy versus spy guy made of a coiling spring. Obviously meant to be goofy. He's got a top hat. He's wide-eyed, so he might be meant to seem stupid. And that's what I can get from the memes. So we can still get some information even not having been there, but we even have memes from 1920. We also, it's a cartoon. It's a pencil sort of cartoon with a caption under it. And that's another older type of meme, that single frame, just single sort of cartoon that we would see in like an editorial now or in a magazine and newspaper. That's an old school type of meme. Again, something you can transmit easily. This says, look here, old man, why can't you and your wife come out and spend the weekend with us? And it's some, again, top hat people talking in the street. It says, we'll be glad to if you'll promise not to show us the chickens or make us carry home a lot of vegetables. Ooh, look at the propaganda in that. So again, this is culturally transmissible units of information in this case, and in many cases in the modern world and the ancient world, this is being used to create a certain outcome. You're meant to read this and feel bad, ashamed if you have chickens and vegetables and you try to share them with people. This is the old way. We don't want you to do that. We want you to buy things in a store. We want you to live in a city. So you and your, chickens, your vegetables, like, be gone with you. This is a shaming of people. So we already had this memetic warfare going on in 1921. And I call it warfare because it is attacking a specific segment of society. It is specifically a group of people who have more power, who are intentionally trying to craft a type of culture, a type of society they want. You could call it a conspiracy if you want. It's not a huge one. It's not a super malicious one, but people had to conspire to pull it off, and they had a very specific outcome in mind, and they knew how to try to accomplish it. We started seeing this as soon as you could share pictures and words with people. So in newspapers and magazines, we had memes. So we could go through a lot of these, but they're all sort of the same. They're often coming from the lower classes up. So it's the not very powerful people who are trying to make each other aware of something or share an idea of what might work better. And that's what we see a lot of. But we also see this type of stuff, right? From the upper classes down that are like, shame on you for having chickens and vegetables. How long has that been going on? We saw a lot of that in the last 5 years as well. So old memes, older than the internet, older than the word meme, going back as far as we can tell with sounds, with mantras, with all kinds of symbols, every kind of symbol, and all of these publications as well. All of them had memes. So this is actually a Reddit subthread or a thread called a subreddit called proto memes. Memes before memes, right? Proto memes. And actually everything we've talked about could be called proto memes. There are memes before we had the word memes, proto memes. And so I don't know if they include everything we're talking about or if they're just doing more examples like this, but probably a very interesting subreddit if you're into it. Another example of that sort of pressuring the use of memes as a form of, again, we'll call it warfare. You can call it whatever you want, but aiming to curb people's choices, curb their culture, the way that they express themselves, what they choose to do and not do. Another of these is an open propaganda campaign for jaywalking. And the term jaywalking, which we all know, look how effective that meme was. We still know this word. You ask someone, why do we call it jaywalking? 98% of people aren't going to know what you're talking. They're going to be like, I don't know. We just do. It's jaywalking. Okay, but why is it Jay? Who's Jay? Why is he walking? Well, this was a campaign back in the day. It says the term jaywalking and the concept behind it were popularized in the 1920s as part of a propaganda campaign by the automobile industry. So the government and the automobile industry are again, this is a conspiracy. I mean, people think conspiracy has to be some sort of evil thing. It's just conspiring just means you get together to accomplish a thing, sometimes surreptitiously. So this is a conspiracy. It's propaganda. This campaign aimed to shift blame for traffic accidents from drivers to pedestrians and to reshape public opinion in favor of automobiles. So back in the day, you've got horses, you've got buggies, you've got whatever, you got streets, but they're mostly for people. People are walking around. Most people are walking. Some people are riding a horse. Every once in a while, you've got a horse-drawn carriage, right? Most people aren't rich enough to have a horse-drawn carriage, so they're walking or they're riding their horse or whatever. And the street is just filled with people. I mean, it's not filled all the time with people, but way more than we would expect. We're very antisocial these days compared to how people used to be. You'd be on the street, you'd be talking to your neighbor, you'd be calling across the street, you'd be walking back and forth, you'd be kids playing and throwing balls and whatever. And the streets were crowded. So when cars came out, lots of people got hit because people were used to being in the streets. But now we've got this much faster, much more powerful, giant contraption of metal and gas just flying around. And so people were getting hurt, getting injured, dying left and right. It was a problem. But that was people's culture. The culture was you hang out in the street. So people weren't going to get out of the street. There weren't that many cars. And so, it just wasn't a thing that caught on. So this jaywalking campaign was created to shame people who went in the street. So it's not just crossing. Now it's crossing not at a crosswalk, but back then it was just being in the street at all for any reason. You're a jaywalker. It was initially an offensive slur, but it was effectively used to stigmatize pedestrians who cross the street outside of designated crosswalks. It was actually just at all, anybody in the street. Now it's outside of designated crosswalks, as I said. And so that's what it was. It shifted blame, it created shame, and it worked. And now nobody goes in the street. It's been a long time since people went in the street. And that's what jaywalking is. So this meme was so effective. I mean, they had various different pictures with words on them or types of media that they shared to transmit this unit of cultural information, which is what a meme is. And it worked. Changed the culture, and it changed it so effectively. We still say it 100 years later, and we don't even know why. We don't even know the term. Jay was the dumb guy who they made fun of. Oh, he's just Jay. Jay's just walking around. Goddamn Jay. Yeah, jaywalker. That's what it was. So, very effective. Propaganda and memes, practically the same thing. Might as well call them the same thing. You're transmitting cultural information. They also have this other thing that's growing through subreddits and this sort of internet culture where they're calling this meme creation, the use of memes, the transmission of memes, they're calling it becoming a tulpamancer. Like a necromancer, but a tulpamancer. And a tulpa is another form of meme in a way. It's a very different form, though. A tulpa is usually when a student of mysticism or the occult uses their mind to create a physical living being. And whether you believe that's possible or not, that's what a lot of people believe is possible. And that's what a tulpa actually was. And it was one of the most dangerous forms of advancement on the spiritual path or magic. Because if it gets away from you and it's running amok, You have to know also how to destroy a tulpa, which is actually just destroying a part of your own mind. So it's interesting. And it's interesting if you want to bring it into psychological terms, which is what a lot of modern people do with tulpa. You could think of it as an aspect of yourself that is seemingly has some sort of power over you. And so people with addictions might feel like that, right? There's this part of me that just like has to go gamble and I can't control it. And what do I do? And it's hard to identify this part of yourself and kill it, right? It's hard to change yourself. And so similar to that struggle, right? And so people look at tulpas in this way more and more now as a psychological thing, as something that you created, maybe not even intentionally, and that could get away from you and could maybe even overpower you, but at least exists mostly independently from you once you're done creating it. And it is actually interesting that memes are like that. You can create a meme, you can even do it accidentally, and it can transform the world, and you've got no control over it after that. So this happens to people sometimes really sadly. You feel bad for them. They'll do something and it will be caught on camera. It'll be on TikTok or something, and then just everyone knows about it, and it's embarrassing, and there's nothing they can do. It's there forever. And so this is sort of tulpa-like, right? And it's also memetic. It's also a meme. And it can also happen in good ways. There's just people who go viral and, they become a meme and goes on forever, and it's kind of cool. And you catch up with them 20 years later. It's like the baby who like had his fist like this and everybody used it for a meme for so long. And now he's like an adult. That's how long it's been. We've been using this meme. So, tulpa, meme, similar. It could be good, could be bad. It is transmitting, and it is effective, and it is carrying information with it. And everybody knows what it is, even if it's not explained. Right. And that's the point of the meme. Right. You have those. That's why those memes go viral. That's why those videos go viral, because everybody knows what's funny about it. Everybody knows what's shameful about it. Everybody knows what's awesome about it, unique about it, unlikely about it. Everybody knows without having to say it. And once you have to say it, you kind of might stumble for words and be like, well, it's just funny, or it's just shameful, or you just, right? Like everyone knows. I don't know. Because again, this is like on a subconscious level, and that's why it can transmit so easily and so quickly. It's archetypal, it's symbolic, it carries more information than you could ever try to pack into it on purpose, right? So the best memes are accidental, actually. They're accidental, and they're something that is highly relatable. Even if we don't necessarily see ourselves in it, we still relate to it, right? So this person talks about this, and I didn't know this was a subculture of talking about tulpamancing or using memes in memetic sort of warfare creation until today. And I kind of love it. Okay, this is what I kind of love about the internet. It can create so much garbage, and it can create really interesting experiments. So they're also making memes about tulpas and about memes and tulpa creation, which is very meta, very cool. So anyways, this article is interesting if you ever want to check it out. It's called "Everyone is a Tulpamancer." Go. It's very irreverent. I'm not necessarily agreeing with everything this person says. I just find it fascinating. So symbols, stories, and rituals are all forms of memes in a way. And rituals, yes, are also memetic and also transfer a huge amount of information without anyone having to really explain in detail all the different aspects of what's being transmitted. It just works. So rituals actually maybe, again, one of the most powerful types of memes. And all of them are powerful containers for transformative consciousness. So again, like I was saying earlier, like you can receive all this information. It can bypass all of the logic within you and go straight into your subconscious and cause you to have an internal experience of self, or a gnosis, or a revelation, or an enlightening moment. And that can transform you. So they're transformative at best. And an inner transformation is great. They're also, again, effective at transmitting from person to person. So you could go have a ritual, for example, going to church. You can go and have the communion, right? You can go for the first time ever. You don't know anything about it. And everyone there is walking up in a line and taking their turn and kneeling down and being blessed and being given the body of Christ, the blood of Christ, and this very reverent. And then everybody goes back and sits down, and you don't know for sure what just happened, but you can feel what it is to you. You can feel sometimes good, sometimes bad, depending on who you are, right? That might terrify you. But you get that something is profound. You may understand even more deeply than that it's just profound, or that it's community, or that it's connection, or that it's a chain of the same event happening over and over for thousands of years that connects you to the past. You might actually have some sort of divine inspiration or revelation as well, because that's the power of a ritual. It is, again, it's almost enigmatic in its tulpa-like or egregore-like, that repetition, right? Over and over, over and over. Morphic resonance. We've done this a million times. So even if you don't consciously understand why, you can be deeply moved by these things, and it can be very transformative, and it can transform culture, can transform people, can transform others through you. Even if you're not quite sure what it is and you can't say it to somebody exactly, you might just be different, and people might just get that from you. And like, oh, there's something else, or there's something more. There's something mature. There's some sort of light here, right? And they don't even know either. There doesn't have to be words. And that's why memes are so effective. And that's why rituals are one of the best memes. So again, stories are the same too. And stories will have the same story. We have only so many stories, but we will tell them again and again and again and again. You'll go watch any show, and you've heard this story a million times, and you'll still love it, and you'll still want more, right? Because it's you. You're looking at yourself, and you're like, yeah, it is like that. Yeah, it was like that. Yeah, I felt that too, right? Or sometimes it's, I want to be like that, and I want to do that next time, and I want to be better. Or sometimes it's like, oh, I want to not make that mistake anymore, right? Stories are also very effective, mimetic, very effective information transfer culturally across time and space easily. But they have a lot more words. They're not quite as mimetic in that way, right? Where they're condensing a lot into a little, but a little bit. They're very similar. So they're all sort of mimetic, tulpic, egregoric transmissions across time. And so, of course, they've been weaponized. And I mean this very, very literally and very specifically by the military. And I'm not mad about it. I'm not even mad about it. I don't think you should be either. Because even before they called it mimetic warfare and had it as an open part of the military, it was used that way. We already had this. Psychological operations were already a thing before meme was coined as a term, and before mimetic warfare was a specific goal of the US military. And by the way, that means every military also. There's no military that's not doing this, or if there is, they're not a very good military. So, you know, that's what I'm saying. I'm not mad. Right? If it's going to happen either way, right? That's what militaries do. Whether you love them, hate them, or feel neutral about them, that's their job. And so they're all going to do it. They've all been doing it before it was a word. That's what we call psychological operations. Much of it is mimetic. Much of it is, how do we transmit this information easily and so effectively that it never dies, that this idea never dies, and that it keeps people acting in a certain way. So I remember talking to a military recruiter because I was mentoring a young man who wanted to join the military. And so I supported him in doing that. And the recruitment officer, while he was in taking a test, we were just sort of chatting. And I was saying something about something that had happened recently. Sorry, I can't remember what, but I was saying something about like, oh, I don't know, is that a PSYOP? Because I was like, I have this military guy here. I'm going to ask him, right? And he's like, I can't overstate that everything is a PSYOP. He's like, and the way he put it is, he was like, 90% of the military is PSYOPs. Whether they call it that or not, that's what it is. He's like, the commercials we put out to get recruits, the things that we're taught to say and do, the uniforms we wear, the way that we are in this role, all of it is psychological operation. All of it is meant to evoke a very specific pattern of behavior and thinking and being. And I thought about it, and I kind of was like, wow, he's like admitting this. But then I thought about it, and I was like, but actually, we could say this about everything. There isn't anything that isn't a PSYOP. And so PSYOP just means psychological operation, which really just means that you're trying to affect the way someone thinks. And whether it's yourself or another person, that is actually all you're ever doing. So I'm not necessarily talking about manipulation, something we would call manipulation or being deceitful. But even if you go up to someone and you're like, I love you, and you hug them, you want them to know a thing. You're trying to transmit information to them. That's psychological. That's a psyop. So I'm not saying everything's a psyop and that everything is untrue or everything's meant to manipulate you or change you or do something nefarious. I'm saying we're psychological beings and everything we do is psychological. It's like there's nothing we're doing that isn't. So he's right. It's all a psyop. And so is everything else. This is not actually that nefarious. But when you know that, you're empowered. When you understand all the things we've been talking about tonight, you're empowered. And you become just as much of a psychological operator as anybody else. So just like anything else in life, the more you understand something and have mastered it within yourself, the easier it is to exist in the world without failing to notice something, being taken advantage of, lied to, etc. So you're empowered, you're more protected. The more you know, right? So Memetics, it says, is a growth industry in U.S. military operations. This is the United States government's own website, military website, dtic.mil, Department of Technical Information Center. Defense Technical Information Center, DTIC. And they talk about just openly what they have to do to use meme warfare. And they also call it psychological operations. Like I said, that's not something I'm just making up. Like they understand that too. So it says tomorrow, this is an abstract of a study that is presented so the U.S. military can get with the times of tomorrow. It says tomorrow, U.S. military must approach warfighting with an alternate mindset that is prepared to leverage all elements of national power to influence the ideological spheres of future enemies by engaging them with alternate memes to gain advantage. Defining memes are units of cultural transmission or a unit of imitation, and as ideas become means to attack ideologies. So they're specifically talking about attacking ideologies, changing the way people think and their ideas about how the world should be, how society should be, how government should be, how their culture should be. It says meme warfare enters into the hotly contested battlefields inside the minds of our enemies, and particularly inside the minds of the undecided. So, and they're not wrong. If you're very strong in your conviction, people can't hypnotize you. They can't, use subliminal messaging to change you. They can't meme warfare you out of your opinion. It's the people who are able to be swayed that they're after. And that's actually most people. I don't know if you know this, but most people aren't very strong in what they believe or understand or their convictions. So it's a lot of people that they are psyoping in order to change their ideologies. In the world, and we could say whatever you may perceive to be your potential enemies in the world, they're using meme warfare against you for sure, whether you know it or not. That's happening. It can happen through your news and media. It can happen through podcasts like this that you think are just a person in a room or whatever. And, it can happen through all types of media, all types of access they have to you symbolically, like we heard, songs, right? Stories, all of these things can be used in this way, but most of the time it's going to be what we traditionally think of as memes, which are the pictures with the words on them on the internet, right? Because they know that's what most people are looking at. So they're using all the ways, but those are one of the ways. It says memes can and should be used like medicine to inoculate the enemy and generate popular support. They're literally talking about if they go into a country to destabilize the government or the leading coalition or whatever it is, they're going to use memes to try to convince people to not go that way and to be with them instead, or to be with whoever it is they're propping up. It's just what the military does. So very, very interesting. We also have this really, really in-depth, this is from 2011, actually, that is from Dr. Robert Finkelstein. So you may have heard of him before. He's often quoted and talked about as sort of the modern father of military memetics. And that's because they hired him to do a 4-year study on memes and meme warfare and meme transmission and effectiveness of memes, etc., and to present it. And so this is his presentation. Again, it's not hidden. It's not a secret. Anyone can find this. It's just an open thing that is shared with us. It's our government's work for 4 years. There may be other things about this that are hidden, but this is what we can know. And so he worked with DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects. DARPA is the sort of technological subcontract or contracted by the military to do like robotics and drones and all sorts of creepy things. And so, of course, they're involved with this. But check out this image. They're not usually shy about what it is they're doing or trying to do. And this is an actual image from the actual presentation, which is a pretty nefarious looking wizard that takes up all of space and time and is holding the earth in his hands and looking at it like, what am I going to do with this? Right? What can I do with this? He doesn't have a happy, calm, peaceful vibe or look. So memetically, we can infer that they want to be as God and be able to look at the world and control it as though it could sit in the palm of their hands. And they're not shy about this either. Like complete and total domination and control of all levels of being, air, space, land, sea. That's their goal as a military. That's every military's goal as a military. Again, or they're not very good at being a military, which I'm not saying is good or bad or neutral. I'm saying that's a military's job. Unfortunately, that's true. So not shy, trying to be God, working with DARPA, using memes against you, for sure. Doesn't matter right, left, center, where you are, you're being memed at. You're being attempted to be swayed into thinking things you didn't already think, believing things you didn't already believe. And often, again, just like jaywalking, being shamed or cajoled or pushed into behaving differently. And again, wherever you stand on the spectrum, it doesn't matter. If you loved COVID or hated COVID or loved the lockdowns or hated the lockdowns or loved masks or hated masks, you at least have to acknowledge that there was a moment where no one I've ever met had ever said the term social distancing. And literally within 3 days, every single person I've ever known knew exactly what it was and what it meant and used it as a term. That's crazy. So in the 1920s, it took quite a long time to get people to not jaywalk. In 2025, it takes 3 days to get 100% of people to actively talk about, use a term correctly, and act in accordance with an unspoken directive perfectly. And I'm not saying everyone did like it or do it, but they knew what it meant and they knew what they were supposed to do. You can't deny that. No matter where you fall on this line, that happened. So that's a really easy, recent example of what meme warfare can do to a population. Good, bad, or neutral. So this is a 152-page presentation that we're quite obviously not going to go through at all. But really interesting. They already, within the first, we're on page 7, and they're talking about they talk about e-memes, as in electronic memes, like working between people, social media, tools, texts, whatever. And then they talk about I-memes. They said I-memes can be studied using tools and techniques such as functional magnetic resonance imaging, neuroimaging, genetic profiling, psychopharmacological manipulations. They're talking about mind control and behavior control of a scientific, materialist nature, of being able to affect your brain waves and therefore affect how you think and feel and act. This is no accident. Again, like I said, this is 2011, and lots of military documents talk about controlling people, how they think and how they act through electromagnetic methods from afar. So a lot of people think that's some sort of conspiracy theory. There's no theory about it. It is a fact. And they are open about what they want to do with it. Whether or not you think they have and are using this technology is the only real question. But whether or not they have talked about it, designed it, understand how it works, and want to use it is not a question. So that's there. So yeah, lots of weird, creepy, again, quite nefarious often attempts to control you and your thoughts and what you think, believe, and how you act, what you do, how society is, cultural engineering at its finest. On and on and on. So 152 pages, not going to go into it, but if you want to find it, you could search for the Military Memetics presentation by Dr. Robert Finkelstein, and you will find it. Not hard to find. So here's a quote from Dr. Finkelstein, his role in DARPA in that study in 2011. He said, "Guns and bombs are replaced by rumor, digital fakery, and social engineering." And he's not wrong. So we've talked about 5th generation warfare, nonlinear warfare. This is it. This is the crux of it. There's a million different ways and means and like tactics and all of this, but it's no longer let's meet and shoot each other, let's drop bombs, although that still happens. The real war is in the mind. It's a psychological operation, and it is affected by rumor, digital fakery, and social engineering. And, a lot of people send me videos that are fake, that are AI. If you're not looking at things and instantly asking yourself, is this AI, is this fake? You're probably doing yourself a disservice. Our discernment has to get higher and higher in this place, in this age, in this time, because we're just going to see more and more fake things. And they can be of no consequence and be fake. And they can be of great consequence and be fake. This Hunter Biden interview came out, and my first question was like, is this even real? Because it can look that real. It can be that convincing. And it never even happened. So I really don't know. And you really don't know. I actually think it is real. But, you have to ask yourself these things, or you're going to fall behind in this time. And so Finkelstein is right. That's been replaced. Guns and bombs have been replaced by this social engineering, this mimetic social engineering and warfare. It's an ancient, ancient practice. And it's been brought into this modern age in a way that is so effective that, like I said, 3 days, whole nation, 350 million people, right in step, right on time. Too easy. So our discernment has to go way up, right? If it's that easy. Another researcher of memes and memetics and meme warfare is Prosser. And he says, combat inside the mind of the enemy. That's where combat is now. Inside the mind of the enemy. It's also inside the mind of your ally. And they know that too. And like we talked about, this is why the military is structured the way it is. This is why they have their recruitment videos the way they do. This is all intentional too. This is the same thing, but not quite combat, right? But it's inside the mind of your allies. So maybe you say influence inside the mind of your allies, combat inside the mind of the enemy. Make it confusing, give them the wrong impression, lead them away from the truth, prop them up to think the thing you want them to think, to come to the conclusion you want them to come to, train them into the behavior that serves you. That's the modern warfare. That's memetics in the modern world. Another aspect of this memetic warfare is used, and this was an analysis of Russia's information campaign against Ukraine in 2015 in an election that was in Ukraine just prior to that, apparently 2014, 2013, maybe. And that was very obvious to NATO, at least, who did this study, that Russia had intentionally done this information campaign against Ukraine in order to create a certain outcome in their election. Is that true? Probably. And what they're not telling you is all the other people who also were doing information warfare, memetic warfare inside of Ukraine to affect an outcome. So, they're focusing on Russia because Russia's their enemy. So they want to expose what Russia's doing, but they're not saying what they did. They're not saying what the US did. They're not saying what China did. But everyone did something. There's nowhere that these big superpowers aren't actively pursuing meme warfare and this 5th generation warfare, this nonlinear warfare. There's nowhere. So it's not a question of like, did Russia? Of course they did. But why do you only care about Russia? So I'm just saying, right, as a thinker, whoever you like or whoever you don't like, you have to know they're all doing it. Don't delude yourself into thinking that there's some faction here that you can be like safe with and they're somehow morally or ethically superior. No, that's not true. Everybody's doing it. It's a question of whether you like their manipulations or not. That's the real question you're going to be asking yourself if you're trying to figure out who to trust. So yeah, of course Russia did. But what's interesting is they go into how Russia did. And so they're actually exposing their own tactics because they're doing them too. So what we're doing is we're seeing exactly how these things work. And we already know social media, algorithms, what you see and what you don't see, right? What you're allowed to see and what you're not going to see, what you've seen 10 million times because they're really trying to pound it in, and what you've never seen before, even though it seems like I kind of would have wanted to know about that, but I never saw it. And you could be in a network in your social media and 80% of people could be talking about something, but if they don't want you to think that, you won't see it. You could go actively looking for it and you might see it, but it's not going to pop up in your feed. Why do you think they went from the time when it was so easy and you could log into any of your social media and you could just go through linearly all through time order until you reach the, oh, yep, I saw this before, so now I know I've seen everything new. You could never do that now. You have no idea. You don't even know. So what you're seeing is very, very orchestrated. And that's another thing to know about meme warfare, about this ancient magic and this ancient tradition that's actually being used against you in a modern way, is that it's that easy. Just an algorithm is enough. They can just suppress certain keywords, certain key terms, certain images, certain people who are problems. You may have noticed this before. If you follow anyone who's controversial, all of a sudden you don't see their posts ever again. Did they actually disappear? No. They just stopped showing you their posts. Are they still making posts? Yes. You just don't see them. You don't even see comments all the time anymore. So there's another thing. You're like, well, at least I found the post I can see. But you have to go actively say, show me all comments. And even then, you don't know that you're seeing all of them. You're still seeing what they want you to see. It is that controlled. They say so. It's not a secret. They even identify how the enemy does that as well. It's who has access to these platforms. You could say, oh, Elon Musk owns Twitter, and so he does. Who else does? DARPA does. Russia probably does. China probably does. The US government definitely does. And so who has access to your algorithms? That's really up in the air. It's very, very highly up in the air. Who has access to them at any given time? So this is another layer of the warfare that is going on for your mind. And so, if you're like me, you very intentionally craft your online experience. You very intentionally go looking for the things you want to see, and you don't just scroll. Because if you're just scrolling, you're being manipulated in some way. And sometimes it's cool. I mean, like sometimes you're getting what you want. You've trained your algorithm to give you, in my example, if I go on to Reels, it's going to give me a bunch of animal videos. It's going to give me chicken videos and animals and nice people doing nice things and really happy stuff. And it's awesome. Right. But if you're just going through your regular feed, if I'm going through my feed, it's giving me a lot of some of that. And then also the propaganda aimed at people who they think like animals and nice people and things. Right. So you're still being conformed, but you can choose to just go to this person's profile, that person's profile, this news site, that place, right? And then now you're getting at least what you want instead of just whatever they want you to see. So they go into that. They go into bot farms, right? The paid people who are sent to comment, make it look like everyone agrees with something when really it's just literally a room of people in India who are given a bunch of just pre-made text to just go and post on everywhere they can find. Their sock puppet accounts, they call them. So it's not really them. It's just an account they made up with a fake name and a fake picture. And they just make it seem like they might even engage with you and argue with you on this topic, especially if you're ever in a political or sort of societal, thread conversation. And now actual bots, right? For a long time, also actual bots. So just AI, just not even a person, just a fake account from a machine that is also meant to make you think that people think a certain way, that might also respond to you directly and engage with you, and isn't even a person. And people don't generally know. And when they find out that that is happening or that it happens, it's usually in this context of, oh, Russia does that. Okay, well, your government does it too. Wherever you are in the world, your government's doing it too, not just Russia. So is it evil? Well, if you're going to say it's evil, then you at least have to be consistent and say it's evil for all governments all the time. Right? I don't even know that I would call it evil. I'd say it's nefarious. It's definitely divisive and dark. It's definitely dishonest. And if it were at least leveraged in a way that made people feel good about themselves and connect to themselves and the earth and each other more, I would then like it, right? So is it evil to actually do it? Not necessarily. The way it's being used, though, is a type of warfare, is a type of mind control, and it is definitely being leveraged against you and not for your best interests all the time. And so, yeah, pretty dark. Pretty dark. Memetic warfare, pretty dark. Taiwan famously employed the humor over rumor option and strategy to combat disinformation, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic and in response to Chinese influence campaigns. So again, they point out China was the bad guy. They were trying to influence Taiwanese people during COVID to think a certain thing, but Taiwan's the good guy for using those exact same methods to make their population think something else. Yeah, it really isn't. If you're Chinese, you probably think the Taiwanese are awful and China's great, and what China did was great, and what Taiwan did was bad, right? So it's a matter of perspective, for sure. And the humor over rumor attempt really was the same as the jaywalking type thing. It was like meant to shame people, and they used their Shiba Inu mascots and adorable things and likable things to try to like push people or sometimes shame people into doing what they wanted, building effective communities, they call it. And so they used a lot of memes in that, a lot of the internet type of memes, the image type of memes as well. So again, they promote this as like yeah, we saved you all. We brought the right information, the truth in, and maybe they did. It is always interesting too. It is both true and unfortunate that the lower your IQ or logical ability to think and reason, the lower those skills are, those attributes are, the more likely these things are to work. So like I said, if you're undecided, unsure, don't have strong convictions, that they're also more likely to work. Those are more likely to be true for people who are naive or undeveloped or lower in ability or IQ or reasoning skills. So it's also kind of a question of abuse, right? Improper use of your power. You're leveraging against people who never really had a chance to see through it or to overcome it or to make their own choice. So immoral, unethical. Again, if it was used to like help people, if you're using memes to sort of teach people who have really low reasoning faculties to how to remember to brush their teeth every night or something, like that's cool. That's right. We could agree that's positive. So again, this is like a where and how and to what degree matters, right? It's nuanced. So we talked about the algorithmic control. We have this like broken down to, again, it's a psyop, it's a psychological operation, it's mind control. So they definitely have it broken down to what are the main buttons, right? What are the main buttons that control people? Facebook famously did their research on people, and they manipulated people. This was admitted around 2014, but who knows how often it is still done or was done before then. But in 2014, we found out Facebook would intentionally try to make you angry, try to make you sad, try to make you happy, and to see how easily controllable you are, to see what it is that gets you into these different states. They're measuring your like eyes and how they flicker and how they move. They were measuring your heat. They were measuring your facial shapes, like, I'm happy, you're like, oh, I'm sad. So they were looking at all of that through your camera, through your biometric data, through your sensors on your phone. And again, if you tell people that, they'll think you're crazy, or that's a conspiracy theory, or this is some sort of wild thing. It's wild, but it happened, and it's not a secret, and you can go find it yourself. And so here's some of the things that they know are the most effective to get people to do certain things. And it's the emotions of anger, the sense of belonging. If you feel like you belong to a group, then you're more likely to do what that group is supposedly supposed to do or think or be. If you fear something, you're more controllable. If it gives you the opportunity to distinguish yourself, you're more controllable. If you're very, very hungry, which also might be just better said as like desirous, right? Lustful. If you're feeling very caring, or like you get to be the caretaker or even be cared for, if you get the approval of others. And for some people, it really is just obeying authority. It's that simple. If they just present it as though the authority says you should do this, then you're going to do it. So these are some of the primary buttons, they call them, for getting people to do things, for manipulating people, memetically, via psyop, especially in the modern world online via memetic warfare. So pretty interesting. They have this all mapped out. But again, this is an ancient thing. Those are very modern applications, very modern culture, modern society ways that this is being used. But this is so ancient that Manly P. Hall called it the secret teaching of all ages. So like all ages, this is actually the secret. This is what's underneath. This is the occulted. This is the esoteric. Not because it's hidden from you necessarily, but because most people aren't paying attention to the technology of your mind, soul, heart, and body, and to how others who know how you operate will use that against you, and how they will transmit cultural packets of information in the ways that are most likely to change your behavior and your thoughts. But esoterically and occultly, we call it magic, we call it symbolism, we call it ritual, we call it archetypes, right? They're all memetic. They're all meant to influence you. They're actually, just like any tool, they're neutral. You can use them for good. You can use them for bad. They don't have a good or bad. They just are. Symbols just are. Some of them have good effects. Some of them have bad effects. Memes just are. Some of them have good effects. Some of them have bad effects. As we said, knowledge is the power, actually. Knowing how you work, knowing how your mind works, knowing how the world works, knowing how symbols work, knowing how all of this works, you can then choose what you believe, choose to understand things more deeply, choose how you use perhaps memes or symbols in order to invite others into more positive ways of thinking and being in the world. And you're more empowered, right? So that's why we learn about any of this stuff, is so we can be better at life, better at helping one another step up out of being controlled and overcome by the memetic warfare, and maybe even being participant in our own side of the meme warfare, right? When I put out stuff, it's very positive. When I share symbols with people, it's meant to empower them. When I put things on my social media, it's meant to enlighten, right? I'm very intentional about what I craft and how I put it out there, how I share it. And my hope is that it does what memes do, and it travels very far in very positive ways, because I'm empowered to do that, right? So hopefully you are empowered to do that, and you choose to move into the field of memetic engineering, right? Not officially, but just that you think about, like, how do I talk? How do I speak? How do I present myself? And how do I share this? And what are the effective ways of sharing things? And how do I get people to reflect and think about themselves? And how do I get people to see through the nefarious ways that these tulpa, egregoric, memetic types of information warfare are being used against them, right? How do I help free people from this? So Manly P. Hall also said, symbolism is the language of the mysteries. By symbols, men have ever sought to communicate to each other those thoughts which transcend the limitations of language. And what I love is there's places you'll go in the world, if you've traveled a bit, and there's places where people are quite oppressed, are not allowed to say or publish or write or share information sometimes that their ruling class or party or government says not to share, right? Not to talk about. And if you're in those places, you will notice there are symbols everywhere of, like, the, we'll call it the resistance, for lack of a better term, right? The people who aren't giving up, the people who are still trying to show each other, look, we're here and we're not done with this. And here's a new idea to transmit to each other, and let's keep going. And it's beautiful. It's so cool. So again, even if you're not initiated into it, you're not given a set of symbols to go run with, right? You'll find them and you'll be able to use them, and no one could ever actually take it away from you. So it's actually very heartening, whether you agree with their side or whatever, and whatever conflict we might be talking about. It's very heartening. Like we said before, these are actually embedded in the technology of ourself, embedded in the technology of our mind, embedded in the technology of the world, of the universe, and it's reflected at every layer. And so even if you're not consciously aware of it, because the memes have already come through and gotten to your subconscious, and they're there in your ancestral subconscious and your past life subconscious, they're going to come up and out when you need them. And that's just the truth. So the meme warfare will never be over, or rather, we will never be crushed by it, because we have an intrinsic ability to overcome this. So Manly P. Hall is correct about that. One more Manly P. Hall. He says, when the human race learns to read the language of symbolism, a great veil will fall from the eyes of men. And that is the truth. It is so. And so I hope you have come a bit closer to having your own understanding of symbols, symbolism, memes in their modern form, symbols in their ancient form, informational packets that transmit between people. And they're able to use that for your own flourishing and upliftment more and more, and also for the flourishing and upliftment of all of humanity. And until you do, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first.
Glued to them screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood wands of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempt the mental robbery, executed sloppily. The hypocrisy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger